Mr. Damian Green.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great pleasure to follow the Right Honourable Gentleman from Belfast North as someone who was both present and involved when the confidence and supply arrangement was originally signed. I'm delighted that it's in such robust health today. I rise, as indeed the last two speakers have, to support Amendment N in the name of my right honourable friend from Altrincham. And I do so partly because the House now needs to say something positive. We are at the Prime Minister was right when she said in her opening speech that we all know what we don't like, what we don't like collectively. We've now got to start moving down the path quite quickly of things that we do like. And I think there are three issues that have arisen during this debate where I would invite honourable and right honourable members on all sides to question what a piece of conventional wisdom is. The first is that we both appear to agree that there should be no more delay, but actually many people on all sides will be tempted by motions tonight that will actually lead to more delay. That seems to me to be slightly incoherent. The second point that I've heard time and again is that there is something wrong with the Prime Minister radically changing the backstop arrangements when she put it forward so strongly. It does seem to me that when you put something to the House of Commons and it's defeated by 230 votes, that it's actually a certain degree of common sense involved in changing it radically. That seems to me to be sensible. And the third is the temptation not just of colleagues in this House, but of people outside, to assume that everything that is said by anyone representing the Commission or the European Parliament or anyone else must be taken as gospel, whereas anything said by a British politician must be taken as a negotiating stance. And speaking as someone who is a lifelong pro-European and who campaigned hard for Remain, I have to say I think we do need to show a bit more realism and occasionally a bit more cynicism. We've had in this debate had Guy Verhofstadt quoted. A good man though he is in many ways, I've never noticed him particularly advancing the interests of this country. And he's not, nor is he paid to do so. So I think it is clear that given the result of the referendum, a narrow victory, that the winners must win, but the losing 48% who accept the result want a smooth and orderly Brexit. We need a new deal after the last vote, and therefore several things are important. First is that we need to start changing the tone of the debate, both inside this Parliament and outside, that we have seen some of the hatred and bile that has been introduced into our politics by the passions aroused on this. And it is all our responsibility to try and drain that bile, to try and improve the tone of the debate. And actually, apart from one or two instances at the start of this debate, it does seem to me that the debate we've had this afternoon is a model of how to do it. We all respect each other's views. We know that everyone on all sides has very strong views. Many of us who are not just, as it were, conventionally honourable friends, but actual friends, will be going into different division lobbies tonight. And that is as it should be, as long as we can continue the civilised tone. So let me say that I'm supporting Amendment N because I do think it gives us the outline of a new deal that might be successful in negotiations with Europe and certainly gives the British government a coherent position following the loss last time. I won't be voting for any of the other amendments, partly for constitutional reasons. I do think the distinction between Parliament holding an executive to account and Parliament actually trying to become a quasi-executive, even in limited terms, is a confusion that we shouldn't go down. And other amendments, which in some ways are attractive, the indicative amendment, the indicative vote amendment, I think perhaps is premature. I take the Prime Minister's point that those of us who are very against no deal will have an opportunity to express that opposition. I should say that I am absolutely at one with those colleagues who say that no deal would be a disaster, but I don't think this is time. I will certainly give way to my right honourable friend.
I'm very grateful to him. Can I just understand whether the import of what he's just been saying, and he and I, although genuinely friends, I think will be in different lobbies on the Cooper Amendment, but can he just explain if we get to the end of this N process, Amendment N process, which I shall be voting for as well, and if it doesn't succeed, as we obviously hope it will succeed, but if it doesn't, and the Prime Minister comes back, as she said she will, in the middle of February, will he then change his mind about the constitutional propriety of avoiding a no-deal exit through Parliament if the Prime Minister herself is unwilling to ask for a delay?
I'm delighted that my right honourable friend is asking me to address hypothetical questions now. I think let's see where we are in 2 weeks' time. Certainly, I would say, as I've said before, that I will do whatever it takes to avoid a no-deal Brexit. I think that the method chosen may not be exactly right, but he and others with immensely fertile brains may yet, I hope, have either 2 weeks to think again, or even better, may not need to. Because I hope that the focusing of minds that we are seeing in this country now is reflected by a focusing of minds in Brussels and indeed in Dublin as well, so that we can look forward to quick... I'll give way to my right honourable friend.
Just to pick up his last point, would my right honourable friend agree that much the best way of guaranteeing no deal doesn't happen is to keep no deal on the table, so that we keep pressure on the European Union to talk in a serious manner?
Well, my right honourable friend may well be right that certainly throughout the negotiations the government has made the point, and I think it's a perfectly sensible point, that if you enter into a negotiation saying whatever happens, I'm going to take a deal at the end of it, then you are unlikely to get a particularly brilliant result from those negotiations. And to some extent, that's what happened to the British government in the negotiations before the referendum. We all know that one of the things that might have changed the result would have been if David Cameron had come back with a better and more generous deal from Europe. So I think there is a degree of validity in my right honourable friend's point, even though I think this may be the first time ever we have agreed on a European issue in our more than 20 years in this House. But today, I think, is important. It's important, obviously, for the government, it's important for these negotiations, it's also important for Parliament, because it gives Parliament a chance to be positive, not just to reject a deal, but actually to point a way forward. And in a terrible time for democratic politics, this would be a glimmer of hope, a shaft of light to show that this House can actually contribute to finding a solution to the most difficult political problem this country has faced for decades. And I hope today and over the coming days, the House and the Government can rise to the gravity of that problem.